Well, hello there, friends. It is Mindy Odling coming to you way late for What If Wednesday. But I have to tell you, oh my gosh, what if it all goes right? So I just did our whole What If Wednesday fabulous little check-in with you. And I just realized at the end of 20 minutes of talking to you that I wasn't streaming. They never hit go. Ha ha ha. So today is about productivity. Ha. I actually want to share with you some highlights. I've been reading a book that I gleaned some really good information from, and I want to share with you the top 3 things that I learned from reading this little book, this little treasure, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So before I get into these tips, I want to share with you why I picked up this book. So I was just kind of skimming through, doing some. I found an article on productivity, and I was very interested in, like, how do I get more done in less time, like that kind of thing. And I found someone who had written an article about following Benjamin Franklin's schedule, and they did it for a month to see what would happen. And they had published a listing of what his schedule was, and he was very had a very intentional schedule of when I go to bed, when I wake up, how I spend my lunch, what I do, like when I work and when I eat, and all those types of things. So I thought it was very interesting, and I thought, oh, I would love to learn more about how Benjamin Franklin got all the things done that he got done, because he did a lot. So I went online, I went to Amazon, I purchased the book. And then later that day, I was rearranging furniture. So, like, totally focused on something else. We're moving around furniture, and I'm doing a deep clean. I pull all my books off my bookshelf. And as I put them back on, I find this old weathered book, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, that I had just ordered on Amazon. So I'm like, okay, this book is trying to find me. And then I opened this book up, and on the inside, check this out. This is dated May 1st, 1944, to Bob, who was my grandfather. May 1st was his birthday. From It says, hope you like it, from Dad and Mom. So it's my great grandparents to my grandfather. And so I really felt like it was one of those, when the universe sends you a sign that says, read this, pay attention to this. So I read this autobiography. I want to share with you 3 of the top things that I learned from it. I also want to share with you that one of the reasons that I was really drawn to this book is because Benjamin Franklin was a huge advocate of small groups. And one of the things that makes the What If Up Club so successful is that we use this process together. It's not just a solo thing, that we come together and we what if up together in small groups. So Benjamin Franklin, he had a small group. He called it the junto, which is a Latin word that means the group. And they would get together and have debates and conversations in a specific format, kind of like what we do in the What If Up Club, where we have a specific format we follow. And their intent was to solve some of the biggest issues of their day as they were cultivating this new colonizing a new country. So things like the public library came out of his small group. How about that? Things like the fire department came out of his small group. Yes. Things like the University of Philadelphia came out of his small group. So I was reading this from the viewpoint of, what could we do? Imagine, what if uppers, what could we do to create a better world just by coming together and sharing ideas and putting those ideas into practice. And that brings me to the 3 things that I learned. And first of all, thank you all so much for being here. So it's great to see you. Pop a note in the comments. Let me know who's here. Say hello. Maybe you have a favorite book that jumps off the shelf. What are you reading these days? Pop it into the comments. I'd love to know what's jumped off your shelf, or what's been your latest impulse book purchase that you've been enjoying. Pop it into the comments. So I want to share with you my top 3. Here are the top 3 things that I got out of this book. And they're all kind of related. They're all related to this one particular process. So there's a quote that I love. It started with him, Benjamin Franklin. This is, of course, his autobiography. So it paints him in a good light. But this is a time in his life when he is going through some spiritual um, searching, going to different churches, hearing different ministers. He is very well read. He speaks multiple languages. He reads all the classics. So he has done a lot of thinking and reflection on what spirituality means to him. So, one of his quotes from the book, he says, he found that the most acceptable service of God was the doing good of man. And that was sort of the basis of his philosophy, is that doing good to others is our way of saying thank you to that presence, that being, that creator that created us. How do we say thank you? We do good things for each other. That was his basic idea. So he found that churches sometimes he'd go in, like, frequently, and he wouldn't exactly agree with everything that he was hearing in those Sunday morning talks. Can you relate? Ever been there? Maybe editing in his head. So what he decided to do was he wrote his own little pamphlet of what he believed. And it was about that time that he set an intention. Now, this is the piece that really made me go, I don't hear people doing this anymore, but I think it's a great idea. He set this intention to arrive at moral perfection. That was his goal, to arrive at moral perfection. Now, that's the kind of goal that sounds like, do you even set a goal like that? Like, it's impossible, right? If ever there was an impossible goal. But what if, in setting those huge, lofty intentions, what if even if we don't ever fully realize that dream, what if having the dream, setting the intention, actually has us expand and grow so that we can be the best human beings that we can be? And that was his intent, was to be morally perfect. And the result of that was he strove every day to be the best that he could be. So what if we step into that? So that's the first hot tip, is what if we set an intention that's big and lofty that we could never potentially, like, maybe never even accomplish in our lifetime, but we can strive towards it. And in the striving of it, we become better people. So that's the first hot tip, is setting a big, lofty intention. The next thing he did was, so we set a big, lofty intention of moral perfection. How big is that? And then he said, okay, well, if I'm going to set an intention like that, I have to know what it looks like. So he created this list of virtues. He calls them virtues. Today, we might call them core values. But he synthesized all that he was reading, all that he knew, all that he'd studied. And he was looking at what are the qualities that lend themselves to moral perfection. And he came up with 12. He later added a 13th, and I'll tell you about that in just a little bit. But he created this list of 12. And then for each of his 12, he wrote them down and he said, here is what that particular virtue means to me. Like, here's what it looks like expressed. And then he prioritized it. Okay. So there's a lot of things in this big chunk. It's not just a big possibility. It's a possibility that now has some structure to it. So using the possibility to then gain greater clarity. I have to share, like, when he first set this intention, he actually thought it was going to be easy. He thought, being morally perfect, that's easy because I know right and wrong, or at least I think I do. And so all I have to do is the right thing and not do the wrong thing. But the challenge is, he said, he had all these virtues, and he said, I'd be focused on one, and then another one would slip in as I was focused on trying to master one of them, the others would slip in. Or sometimes temptation would just be, or convenience would just be hard to do the right thing when the not right thing is just a little easier, more convenient. So he decided to create a system to help him become morally perfect. That was the intent. And the system that he came up with was, he created this little booklet. I'm going to show you a page from his booklet. Here's what it looks like. So he would take each of his different virtues. The first one was temperance. And then he had a description of what it means. So temperance to him meant eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. So don't eat so much you make yourself a couch potato, and don't drink so much that you turn into a lush. So that's what his idea of temperance was. And then he made this little grid. And there's a letter on the side for each of his virtues. And then there's a day of the week, Sunday through Saturday. And he would have these little boxes where he would check off at the end of the day. He'd say, did I do it? Or did I have an infraction? His thought was, if I can notice when I'm not in congruence with the person that I want to be, if I can notice the things that I do that don't line up and stop doing those things, and at the same time build the habits, the positive habits that align with the person that I want to be, then over time I can build my character. And that was ultimately his intent. So he took his his values. I'll share with you some of them. Are you curious? So what are the 12 things? He came up with 12, and then he had a friend suggest a 13th, which he added. So his values were temperance, which is, don't overdo it in the eating and drinking department. Silence, which I think of silence, I think of meditation, but for him, it was about only speaking when it would benefit yourself or others. Like, don't just have trifling conversation. He believed in having order, everything in its place, resolution. So once you decide to do something, do it. Frugality. So there's some really good prosperity teachings in here as well. Industry. So don't waste your time. Get busy. Sincerity. Don't be deceitful. Justice. Um, he says, wrong none by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. Moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity. And then the 13th one, the one that he had a friend suggest that maybe he should add, was humility, the virtue of humility, which he said that one was really tough for him, but he practiced it a lot and he was really proud of how good he got at humility. Ha ha ha. Benjamin Franklin. Funny, funny. And I share this, of course, history. Um, we'll see that he fell short of many of these in very significant ways. And yet, this is not a talk about that. This is a talk about what can we learn from it? How can we use systems and structures so that we can continue to grow and strive to be the best that we can be? So he had a big, lofty intention. He broke it down into specifically what it looks like. He not only had like, here's what it is, but here's the actions that go along with it. And then he created his little booklet. And what he decided to do was he would focus on one of his virtues every week. So the first week it would be temperance. And his goal, even though he would track everything, his goal was to go all week without an infraction of temperance. And so he would go through the whole week. And once he got through that week, then he would add the next one. And then he'd try to like keep the first two clean. And then he'd try to do 3 and then 4. And he tried to keep doing that every week. For 13 weeks, he moved down his list, focusing on a different one of his virtues each time. And then at the end of 13 weeks, he wiped it clean and he did it again. And he did it again and he did it again. 13 weeks, 4 times a year. His intent was to do it until he could do it and not find any bad habits, not find any infractions. So a lifelong journey of being the best that we can be, and that was his system. So what I love about that, when I learned from that, is yes, give yourself permission to set a big lofty intent, because even if we don't achieve it, in the striving towards it, it'll help us grow. Second, when you have those big lofty intents, they mean nothing unless we have something underneath it that shows us what it looks like. How does our behavior reflect that intention? And then all of that is great. All that clarity is important. But if we're not taking action, if we don't have an accountability structure, then it's really difficult to create any kind of consistent change. Change takes discipline and consistency and time and repetition. So those are my hot tips that I take from my rendezvous with Benjamin Franklin, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Would love to hear what ideas you have maybe this week. How about this for our challenge this week? Our challenge this week will be to share maybe what your top virtues are. What are your values and what do they mean to you? How do you express them? So if you will share, I'd say at least 3. Like, what are your top 3 values and what do they look like? How do they express? Post them in our WhatIfUP community on Facebook. Let us hear from you, and we'll pick a winner. So the winner this week, because this is a big one. This is some deep work. So I'll throw out a WhatIfUpper t-shirt from our merch shop for a winner, someone to play along. All you do is you go into our Facebook community and you share this week's challenge, which is to post 3 virtues, 3 values, and what they mean to you. So, got it? Game on. Let's play. Let's play. So, I close today with a blessing and a prayer. And this is, again, from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, which I've been reading. He has this in his little book of virtues. He has this prayer at the beginning of every page, and he would read it every day. And I think it's a really sweet blessing. So I share this with you, for myself, for you, and for all of those whose lives we impact by striving to be the best that we can be. So here is that blessing. He says, Oh, powerful goodness. I love that as an invocation. Oh, powerful goodness. Bountiful Father, merciful guide, increase in me that wisdom which discovers my truest interest. Isn't that great? Increase in me that wisdom which discovers my truest interest. We talk about wisdom in the What If Up Club all the time. So, God help me to be as wise as I can possibly be. And then he says, strengthen my resolutions to perform that which that wisdom dictates. So, God, grant me the wisdom and then fortify me, strengthen me so that I can do the thing that my wisdom is calling me to do. So, let me be aware of my guidance and then let me act upon it. And then he concludes saying, accept my kind offices to thy other children as the only return in my power for thy continued favors to me. So, essentially, it's I thank you for the blessings that you've given me. I am blessed. I am privileged. I am receiver of bountiful blessings. And in return for that, the only way that I have to truly say thankful, to say how thankful I am, is to be kind to others, to do good to other people. And so please accept all my kindness and all of the good that I do to others as my gratitude for the many, many blessings that have been bestowed upon me. So that is a few nuggets from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So I hope you enjoyed it. Share with me what your values are, what they mean to you, and maybe like how you choose to grow into those values. What is your strategy? What is your plan for putting those ideas into motion? So thanks for being part of this What If Wednesday check-in. It's wonderful to connect with you. Looking forward to hearing from you throughout the week. Have a great week, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.